Some brawlers had their peaks years ago. Others, they're dominating right now. But every single one had time when they were at the top. And today we're breaking down the best version of every brawler in Brawl Stars history. We're kicking things off with Shelly. And her peak came out of nowhere. For months, she was stuck in C or even F tier. Totally irrelevant. But then, boom! She got a movement speed buff that took her from normal to very fast. Suddenly, she can close gaps like crazy, rush enemies down, and just take over matches. Nita's peak was when gadgets first dropped, and Bear Paws was absolutely broken. Back then, it wasn't just like now where there's a delay. No, you drop the bear on someone, press the gadget, and boom, instant stun, no warning. Colt peaked the moment Silver Bullet dropped. Back then, it wasn't the weak gadget we have now. It fired a massive bullet that dealt the damage of 5 full shots, not 2. Bull was a beast in 2021, thanks to the tank trait. He could get his super just by taking damage and no hits required. That meant you could just go in, get hit, and get super, then chain it again. It turned Bull into a wrecking ball. Brock reached his peak with the release of Rocket Fuel. It gave him a supercharged rocket that did double the damage, broke walls, and moved insanely fast. He could almost one-shot squishy brawlers without even trying. El Primo peaked at the same time of Bull, but Primo was even scarier. His super could be chained over and over thanks to the tank trait. You get knocked back, and then knocked back again and again. It wasn't even a fight, it was a loop. Poco had a silent peak after his gadget rework. He could click it and give his whole team immunity to knockback, slows, stuns, and fire. Even lose freeze meter. And it had a 12-second cooldown, and peeking Lou into Poco was throwing. That gadget alone changed entire games. Barley's best days were back in 2019. Back then, his attacks could stack, so if you weren't fast enough, you take all the puddle damage. And in Heist, he could toss out 3 bottles and melt the safe in seconds. Rosa's peak was the moment she launched. Her super gave her 80% damage reduction for 6 seconds. That's not a typo. She could eat an entire team's damage and walk away. Combine that with how fast she charged her super, and you had a brawler that literally would not die. Jessie got back-to-back buffs that completely flipped her meta. First, her damage and health got bumped in December, and then in January, they burst her damage even higher, plus a buff to energize. Suddenly, she was bouncing shots through whole teams and wrecking them. Dynamike peaked the moment his hypercharge dropped. It gave him the power to team wipe with ease. His dynamites hit harder, flew faster, and the whole thing charged up crazy fast. He'd go in, pop hyper, and delete entire teams before they even knew what hit them. Tick has the lowest health in the game, but it didn't matter when Last Hurrah drops. Back then, it gave him full invincibility. Edgar jumps in, Tick presses gadget, boom! Edgar gets knocked away. He could spam shots, shield up, and basically be immortal. 8-Bit was crazy when he had his extra life star power, and if you played back then, you already know. The first time he died, he respawned instantly with invincibility shield, full ammo, and a second chance to beam you down. In Showdown, no brawler could truly 1v1 him. Even if you won the fight, he came back swinging with full health and just melted you. Rico peaked when Rico Gadget got buffed, and then it got even crazier when they dropped his hypercharge. With the gadget alone, he could assassinate assassins. One tap and high health brawlers just vanished. But once he had hypercharge, it was all over. He'd activate and suddenly you'd be minding your business, then bam, 7 ricochet balls bounce off every wall and delete you. Darryl peaked right after his rework, when his base kick gave him a 90% damage reduction while rolling. That wasn't a star power, that was just baked in. He'd roll into you, take basically no damage, and unload an insane burst. Penny's hypercharge let her turret and shoot 2 cannonballs. If they both connected, you take 6k damage, and she could just hide the turret away in the back where it was basically untouchable. You couldn't go anywhere without getting blasted. Carl peaked recently with his heat injector gadget because of gadgets getting reworked, and it turned him into an absolute monster. Before, this gadget was a meme, but after the rework, he could literally one-shot brawlers, and with a 15-second cooldown, he could just spam it. Jacky hit her peak back in 2020, and she was terrifying. Her gadget let her get a 38% speed boost. You couldn't run away from her. She'd just pop gadget, zip across the map, and Jacky would be in your face before you could react. Combine that with her high base damage at the time, and Jacky could roll up, delete you. Gus peaked in 2024 when his main attack damage got buffed. Suddenly, that soft little ghost was hitting hard, and with this Cookie Popper gadget, he could delete enemies. One well-timed gadget plus a few shots and squishy bars just vanished. Bo peaked with the release of his Trip Bar gadget, and it aimed so annoying. You could click it and instantly detonate your mines, giving enemies no time to react. And with his Snare Bearer star power, that meant a 2-second stun on anyone caught. It turned Bo from a control bar into a trap assassin. Ems peaked in early 2020 when she got a string of buffs. And when she got her Friend Zone gadget, and the range at first was huge, that thing let her knock back anyone who got a bit too close. But what really made her broken was the hype star power. It healed her a ton for every enemy inside her super, and back then, and that even included pets. Stu peaked right after the release of his breakthrough gadget, and it instantly made him a nightmare. It gave him a free super without needing to hit anyone, and on top of that, it let him break through walls and deal 2k damage. That meant he could dive in, reset, and just keep going. Plus, his super had knockback. He didn't just outplay you, he pushed you around the map. Literally. Piper got her homemade recipe, and suddenly shots curved to hit you. You dodged thinking you're safe, but then it would curve back on you and kill you. Para was snappy sniping, and she kept up constant pressure. Pam peaked when her Scrap Sucker gadget got introduced, and it made her a hard counter to tanks and assassins. If you got up too close, she pressed the gadget and drained all your ammo, leaving you completely hopeless. Frank went from worst to first in summer 2024. His rework made his attack speed scale with his health. So low-light Frank could triple shot before you fired once. Hypercharge, it let him hit in all directions. He was a walking team wipe. Bibi peaked when her batting stance star power was first released. Today, it gives her a 20% shield, but back then, it was 40%. That's almost half damage taken off everything. It meant she could just walk up straight to enemies, take their shots, and smack them in the face. That shield gave her all the time she needed to close the gap. B was at her best right when she released, and it was all because of her honeycode star power. Instead of dying, it would just drop her down to 1 HP and give her a 1-second immunity shield, letting her escape death completely. Nani peaked when her return to sender gadget lasted a full 5 seconds. It completely shut down one projectile brawlers. And on top of that, her autofocus star power and her super damage was way stronger back then. It added a huge burst to her damage. Edgar peaked right at launch, when he dropped as a free gift. His Let's Fly gadget wasn't what it is today. Back then, it gave a 700% supercharge over 4 seconds, not 525% over the 3 like now. That meant he could charge a full super instantly and just keep jumping over and over. On top of that, his supercharged way faster, letting him dive in fights constantly. Griff peaked with his life gaining star power because of how much life it gained him. Combine that with his crazy burst damage, and that just made him a top tier brawler. Grom peaked right at release, and he was broken. His shots used to land faster based on distance, so if you threw them close, they landed instantly, letting him spam damage non-stop. On top of that, his super was massive. It had crazy range and charged super fast. Bonnie has been one of the most forgotten brawlers in the game, but on release, she was a monster. In her cannon form, her shots were so fast, they were basically undodgeable. And when she jumped in with her super, her melee form was just brutal. The shots didn't just hit, they splashed, wiping out groups of enemies. Gale peaked when his Twister gadget first dropped, and it was ridiculous. The tornado would sit on the map for 10 full seconds. It completely shut down tanks, assassins, and anyone trying to push mid. On top of that, his blustery blow star power stunned for 1.5 seconds. And because his super was super easy to charge back then, he could just chain it over and over. Colette peaked with the release of her hypercharge, Teen Spirit. It used to charge in just 2.5 supers or 10 shots, which meant she could activate it constantly. In Heist, she became a serious threat, shredding through safes, tanks, and entire teams with ease. Belle peaked right at release. She actually had a longer range than Piper, which is wild on its own. But the real problem was her positive feedback star power. Every time she hit a shot, she got a 25% shield. That meant she could constantly poke from across the map, stay protected, and win every long-range trade. It was considered one of the best star powers in the game at the time. Ash was at the top when he dropped. Back then, he only had to take 75% damage to reach full rage. Today, it takes 125%. With a full rage bar, he could either delete enemies with massive damage, or if he was getting low, just pop chill pill and heal up with a huge chunk of health. You know another bar who peaked on release? Lola. Her damage was insane, and the way her ego worked back then made her even more broken. There was no damage fall off based on distance, so you could just stack her ego right on top of her and basically double her damage. If that wasn't enough, her freeze frame gadget gave a 75% shield, letting her tank everything while still firing off both sets of attacks. Sam has one of the saddest peaks in the game. When his hypercharge first dropped, it was busted. It let him constantly dish out 3.5k damage over and over because the way it worked. Every time he threw his super, he'd get it right back. It only took 2.5 supers to charge, so he could just stay in hyper almost non-stop. But just 2 days later, Supercell nerfed it hard, doubling the charge to 5 supers, turning into the slowest charging hypercharge in the entire game. Just like that, the peak was over. Mandy peaked when her hypercharge dropped, and it instantly made her terrifying. It let her fire 3 super rays in all directions, each dealing 6,250 damage. That's enough to one-shot a third of the brawlers in the game. Players who just fire off random shots, get your super back instantly, and repeat. Clips started popping up of Mandy wiping teams by just spamming supers over and over. Maisie peaked right on release. It was all because of how easy it was to charge her super. Today it takes 4 shots, but back then it only took 3. It made a huge difference. She could just run in, land a few shots, pop super, and just chain it all over again, over and over. Hank didn't peak with his hyper like most people think. He peaked on release. Back then, he could charge his bubble while hiding in a bush, so if anyone got close, he'd just pop out and delete them. On top of that, he could heal while charging, which let him play way more aggressively without being punished. But the most broken part, the power cube scaling bug. In Showdown, Hank would get about 3 times the normal boost from cubes, meaning with just a few, he could one-shot brawlers. Pearl's peak came entirely from her Overcooked gadget. Instead of 33%, it dealt 60% of her damage as it burnt over time. That fire also charged her super, meaning she could spam huge AoE explosions and keep the pressure going non-stop. Larry and Lawrie, do I even have to say when they peaked? They were so broken on release that they've been hit with nerf after nerf. At launch, they had more range, more damage, more health, and you could charge Lawrie in just 5 hits. Their unload speed was faster and the gadget healed more. One of their star powers let Lawrie tank 100% of the damage, and the other star power turned him into a heist-destroying machine. Oh, and Lawrie used to do more damage, and he helped you charge your next super even faster. When Angelo dropped, he felt like one of the most annoying brawlers in the game, which kind of fits his whole mosquito personality. His main attack hit for 4.4k damage, and if you had your super active, his poison damage doubled that. So yeah, land a hit, and then the poison ticks for another 4.4. And in total, 8.8k. If you didn't have more health than that, which is like 70% of the brawlers, then goodbye. Angelo wasn't just poke and run. He was poke and delete. Barry hit his peak with the release of his hypercharge. Double scoops. Instead of leaving just one super trail, he dropped 2 at once, which meant double the damage, double the healing, and way more area control. Shay was released not too long ago, and honestly, he dropped pretty weak. He didn't make much of a splash in the meta. If anything, he's peaking right now. Meeple peaked when his gadget cooldowns got reworked. Right before that, he already got a reload speed buff, and then boom, his gadgets became way more usable. Rage Quit pushed enemies back every 16 seconds, and Mansion of Meeple was on just a 20-second cooldown. Mortis peaked with the release of his hypercharge. Back then, it was way faster to get. It only took 2 supers to fully charge it, and he could pop hyper after hyper, and with his blood boomerang hitting twice and healing twice, he could team wipe in seconds. Tara peaked in late 2018. At the time, her supercharged in just 12 hits, and that meant she could just cycle it like crazy. And when she had her healing shade star power, it was game changing. That shadow was healing her non-stop and letting her stay in fights way longer than she should. Gene peaked after when he could literally crash the game with his super. Yeah, that was a thing. Once they patched that, his pulse still had a 9 tile range. That's about as far as Gus's main attack. And that meant that Gene could grab you from across the map. If you got pulled, you were gone. Max peaked with the release of her hypercharge, Overdrive. It let her and her teammates stack up, get a massive speed boost, if timed right, gain 75% supercharge instantly. That meant you could set up perfect team pushes where everyone had a super and speed. And back then it charged even faster, so the pushes happened constantly. Mr. P actually peaked this year. It was all thanks to his hypercharge. Instead of just one ball, respond 2. And they were insanely fast. It turned Mr. P into non-stop pressure. Sprout came out and immediately broke the game. His overgrowth star power didn't just trigger every 5 seconds. It activated on every single shot, and the splash radius was massive. That meant dodging was nearly impossible. In his super, it charged way too fast, letting him cycle it constantly. Worst part, invincibility shields didn't break it, so you could be stuck in spawn. Byron on release was busted. His healing and damage were too good. He could keep his whole team alive and still melt squishies. Squeak's residue used to be awful. Then it got reworked, slowed enemies, and lasted for 20 seconds. He went from a joke to choke point king. Lou peaked with the release of his hypercharge. It let him instantly freeze anyone hit by his super, which made it insanely easy to chain supers and just lock enemies in place. Back then, his hypercharge charged faster, and even his super was quicker to build. Russ peaked right when he dropped. Why? It all came down to his unload speed. Today it takes a 1/5 of a second between shots, but back then, it was a 20th of a second. That means he could just machine gun ammo at you, and you lose a huge chunk of health in seconds. Buzz's hypercharge never actually made it to the game in its original form, but if it had, it would have been game-breaking. In the dev build, it was supposed to let Buzz get his super back instantly, every time he hit anything. That means infinite supers for 5 whole seconds. You get stunned, he buoy again, stunned again, repeat. It never made it to live, but just thinking about it makes you realize this could have been one of the scariest what-ifs in Brawl Stars history. Fang on release was crazy strong, high damage, high health, and his roundhouse kick gadget used to stun for a full second, not just 0.5. But the best part, his fresh kick star power. Every time he got a kill, whether it was a player or a pet, he'd instantly get his super back. So he'd dive in, kick a turret or porter, chain another super. Eve also peaked on release, and while there was a lot of reasons, the main one was her star power, the one that spawns a hatchling when you hit with your big shot. It didn't have a cooldown. It triggered every single shot, not every 5 seconds like today. So if you kept landing hits, your opponents had to constantly deal with a baby alien. And that wasn't all. Her supercharged way faster. She had more damage, more health, and even a bigger range. Janice is yet another bar who peaked on release. I think I'm starting to see a pattern here. Her super only took 5 shots to charge, so she could cycle it very well. And her drop to base gadget, it lasted 20 seconds, giving huge value just by placing it down. Otis peaked in September 2022, and was one of the biggest glow-ups we've ever seen. He went from being one of the worst bars ever in the game to straight up to S tier. He got his second star power, which gave him an extra projectile, turning his Poco into real pressure. His super started dealing damage, which made silencing even more punishing. Buster peaked right on release, and for good reason. Biggest one, his super lasted 6 seconds, giving him and his team a massive window to push up and block every incoming shot. It was like walking forward with a wall. On top of that, he had insane health, super strong damage, and his healing gadget was overtuned. And to top it all off, his supercharged way too fast so he could just cycle it. Gray peaked on release as a holidays gift. His super used to instantly teleport teammates, so you could just drop a Bull, Shelly, or any high damage brawlers right into the enemy's face. On top of that, his Grand Piano gadget had a huge radius back then. It was used to open up the map. RT peaked when his attack delay was almost instant, making him be able to delete anyone who attacked him. Lulu's actually peaking right now, But not because she's suddenly amazing. No. She's actually never been nerfed. Not once. Instead, Supercell just kept slowly buffing her. A little more health here, a little more super range there, until she finally snuck her way into the B tier. But the real peak, that's coming soon. Once her hypercharge drops, then she'll be peak. In the summer of 2024, the Manowar Doug skin dropped. And with it came a bug that let him heal for 2,400 per shot instead of 1,200. That's double healing, and it made him almost impossible for his teammates to drop below half health. The skin had just released, so it wasn't available for bling, meaning if you paid gems, you basically got a pay-to-win S-tier bar for a stretch. Chuck peaked on release, but not because of his stats, funny enough. He's actually stronger now than he was back then. So why is he better then? Simple, no one knew how to deal with him. Players would just stand near his tracks and accidentally feed him more free supers. And no one could predict when or where he stopped. Charlie peaked right on release. Charlie's super lasted 10 seconds, and her star power halved her max HP. If you got hit, you were removed from the game. Miko's another brawler who peaked on release. But it's not because of raw stats, just like Chuck. It was all about confusion. He'd bounce on you 4 times, and you'd be thinking, I didn't even get to hit him. But it wasn't that he was broken. It's that no one knew how to counter his movement yet. Melody peaks with the release of her hypercharge, and it's stacked perfectly with her kit. Her star power gives her 6% speed boost per note, and the hyper adds 2 extra notes. So now she's zooming across the map with a 30% speed boost. Pair that with her shield gadget, which gives her a 60% shield, and she became almost unkillable. Also, her hypercharge used to charge very fast, and only just 15 hits. That meant she could keep chaining hypers and constantly apply pressure. Lily peaked in the summer of 2024, right alongside Frank. Her ammo bar went from 1 to 2. It completely changed her playstyle. Her gouge was already strong, she could disappear and reappear onto an enemy or reposition. But now, she could gadget in, unload 2 quick shots, and have you down to 1 tap in under a second. Clancy peaked right on release, and it was all because of how easy it was to hit gold stage. Once you got there, he could just shred through opponents with insane damage and get his super back for free. Mo was at his peak on release, and it wasn't even close. Back then, he only needed 7 hits to charge a super in normal form. His super damage was higher, his projectile speed was faster, and most importantly, after he transformed back to normal, he got all of his ammo back. Juju peaked right on release. Her Elementalist gadget shield used to be 50%. That shield made her way too hard to kill. Right now, she's still a very strong brawler. Finks peaked right after the 40 brawler balance change wave, and he was one of the few who actually benefited from it. He got a faster movement speed and a quicker reload. Now, did that launch him into an S or A tier brawler? Not really. But he's definitely not bad. Just one of those brawlers that feels like he's waiting to break out. Lumi is peaking right now. No question. At the time of recording this, she's easily a top 3 brawler. The way she throws out her morning stars and just punches anyone she clips is insane. We're talking 5k plus damage in one swing. And with her slowing star power, once you hit a target, you're basically toast, because now you can land every follow-up with ease. Spike has pretty much always been an S tier brawler, but he peaked when he got his hypercharge. Not a lot of brawlers had a hyper at the time, and Spike was a part of the original 6 to get one. What made it busted was the mythic gear. It boosted the slow effect of his super by 50%, so if you got caught, you weren't escaping. Crow, the most nerfed brawler in Brawl Stars history, peaked all the way back in early 2018, before his first nerf ever hit. Back then, he was a true assassin. His super charged 20% faster, so he could just jump in, get a kill, and instantly jump out, or just chain it on to the next target. And it wasn't just that. His main attack, super, and poison damage were all way faster, letting him secure kills fast. Leon had one of the strongest peaks in Brawl Stars history, because on release in 2018, he was completely broken. His damage was insane. He had a 10-second super. He could also stay invisible even while right next to you, or even while attacking. No counterplay. If Leon had super, you were gone. Sandy peaked right at release. His super stayed on the ground for a full 12 seconds. That's 3 more than it is now. And he could also charge it in just 5 hits, which meant there was always a sandstorm on the map. Now pair that with Root Sand, which did 200 damage per second back then. You might be thinking, that's only 6 more than it is now. But nope, damage inflation is a thing. That 200 damage in 2019 would be like 312 damage today. And that meant Sandy could poke enemies non-stop. Amber peaked on release because her super charged way too fast, so she could just keep chaining flames non-stop. She moved too fast, did way too much damage, and her reload speed made it feel like she was never running out of ammo. Meg became broken the summer of 2024, all thanks to a rework that changed how her mecha attack works. She shot way more projectiles, letting her deal very consistent and high damage. Surge peaked right on release. It was all thanks to his to the max star power and that broken teleport gadget. To the max made his shots never miss, and the teleport gadget, that thing let him teleport through walls. Instantly disengage or dive on someone with the tap of a button. The moment he hit level 4, Surge became a god, and for a while there was no escaping him. Chester peaked on release. His damage was insane. If you got hit by his 3rd and 4th Belle combo, you were burst down in 1 second. But what really pushed him over the edge was his stun super. It was impossible to dodge. Traveled super fast, hit for 1.4k damage, and stunned for 2 seconds. Cordelius hit his prime thanks to a busted kit that let him chain supers. Back then, you could charge your super inside the shower room, then pop another one right after to extend your time there. On top of that, his damage was way higher, and his poison mushroom gadget silenced enemies for 1.5 seconds. Kid had a massive peak, and it wasn't just because he was strong. It was because of a whole mess of bugs that made him feel completely unfair. One bug let him gain supercharge based on power cubes while attached to an enemy. So if he had like 6 cubes, he could instantly chain supers. Then there was this cardboard box gadget. It was supposed to last for 5 seconds, giving him invisibility and only boost supercharge if he stood still. But it doubled supercharge even while he's moving. And that's not all. He could detach from a teammate, then immediately re-super onto an enemy, and just do it all over again. Plus, back then, he didn't take damage while attached to a teammate or an enemy. Draco peaked on release. During his super, he had a 25% damage reduction, not the 15% it is now, which meant supports could keep him alive forever. Add in the fact that he healed himself during Super 2, and it nearly became impossible to take him down. Then you throw in his gadget, which let him stay alive at 1 HP, and suddenly every clutch moment turned into Draco survives and turns the fight. Kenji peaked on release, and it was all thanks to his gadget and star power combo. His gadget let him heal 50% of the damage he took over the last 3 seconds. Then his Nagiri Nemesis star power let him reduce 90% of the damage from 1 projectile every 5 seconds. So he could just full on eat a Mandy super. And it didn't stop there. His super charged in just 5 hits. And if he hit 3 slashes with the super, he instantly get it back. And that's the peak moment of every brawler in Brawl Stars history. Some dominated with insane gadgets, others with wild bugs, and a few, well, they were just built different on release. If you disagree with any of these brawler peaks on this list, let me know in the comments below. And if you made it this far, props to you. This was a long one. Please consider subscribing for more brawler histories. We're getting close to 1,000 subs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.